Hello, welcome to Fig Tree Christian. I'm Pastor Melissa. I am so glad that you are here today. Last week, I told you that I was coming in with my notes and I was sharing everything that I learned about peace and the direction I was going. And then I ended up going in a direction that I did not share with you. So today, I want to share that message on a more adult level. So just know that even though the message I shared last Thursday was for an elementary, middle, high school level group, that I will talk a little bit more adult with y'all because you are all adults and that's who is drawn to listen to me. And I think we do need some adult discussion with some kid help, I guess is what we can say. So once again, today I'll be using Ephesians 6:10 through 18. Let me read that for you real quick so that we are all on the same page. It's just this little nib in there that I'm using, but it's good to know the whole thing. Finally, be strengthened by the Lord in his powerful strength. Put on God's armor so that you can make a stand against the tricks of the devil. We aren't fighting against human enemies, but against rulers, authorities, forces of cosmic darkness, and spiritual powers of evil in the heavens. Therefore, pick up the full armor of God so that you can stand your ground on the evil day, and after you have done everything possible to still stand. So stand with the belt of truth around your waist, justice as your breastplate. Put shoes on your feet so that you're ready to spread the good news of peace. Above all, carry the shield of faith so that you can extinguish the flaming arrows of the evil one. Take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is God's word. May God add blessings to this reading. I've decided that this summer, I'm going to go through the armor of God because I feel like I probably need to know more about it, and therefore maybe you do too. So each week we're going to pick up a different piece of armor, finishing up with peace today. Even though I talked about it yesterday, I feel like I can talk a little bit more. After all, how do I end this message? Go in peace. So it's a very important subject to Fig Tree Christian and what we do. So let's get into it. Full transparency. When I was in elementary, middle, high school, if you were to ask me which piece of armor of God that I would willingly take on and talk about with a group of people, peace would be the very last one. I did not like those shoes. I thought they were the most boring of all of them. And there were a few reasons. First, I wasn't a shoe person. Try telling that to my husband now. I have 8 pairs of All-Stars, Converse, all in different colors. And I've picked up 3 or 4 of them for my kids. So am I a cliche. I am definitely a shoe person now. But back in high school, I was not. I had maybe 5 pairs of shoes, 6 now if I think about it, but that was because one of them was a pair of band shoes. 2 pairs, I couldn't even find the other set of it. Like I had one of the 2 shoes for a pair, so I couldn't even wear them. And then I had a couple of church shoes, like a white pair and a brown pair. And then finally I had my tennis shoes, which is what I wore all the time. So to say I was a shoe person would have been completely and totally a lie. I was as far as you could possibly get from being a shoe person. So talking about shoes of peace was one of the very last things that I would have wanted to delve into in high school. Secondly, I never wanted to talk about peace. And some of that has to do with when I get it, when I feel like I understand the message, it becomes really hard to talk about the message. For example, on Youth Sunday, my senior year of high school, I was asked to give the message, and the message was on love, specifically 1 Corinthians 13, faith, hope, love, abide, these 3, and the greatest of these is love. I gave the most bland message ever, that basically we just gotta love. Like God is love, and therefore if we love, we are in God, and that's it. That's as simple as it gets. So I felt like I understood it, and therefore it was difficult to talk about because I couldn't really dig into the scripture and understand it better. That and I thought I knew it all in high school. I thought I knew all the things about scriptures. Ooh, did I learn I was wrong in seminary? But that just made it difficult. So when I got to talk about peace, of course, when I realized that I felt that I understood it all and I could easily talk about it, I had nothing to say. And it came across last week, I think, it was a little bit jumpy. And so I sat down, stared at a blank sheet of paper, and it hit me. If we're talking about the shoes of peace, it's important to know that the shoes are what's important. Peace is something you walk. Peace is something you go towards. It's not something that's stagnant. So the shoes are important to the message of peace. So what I'm going to do for you today is I'm going to talk about the purpose of shoes, things that are very obvious, things that are like you would come up with this list yourself, but I'm going to relate it back to peace and how using shoes is like walking towards peace. So let's get into it. First of all, shoes are made for a very specific purpose. Now, we could talk about how crazy it is to maybe wear clown shoes to a wedding, unless it's a very specific wedding. I mean, there's all kinds of weddings now, so it could be anything. But typically speaking, we're not going to wear clown shoes to a wedding. We're not going to wear steel-toed boots on the beach. That's not going to be comfortable at all. There's going to be the opportunity for sand to get in them. It's going to be coarse, uncomfortable. No one wants steel-toed boots on the beach. You want sandals on the beach, but you're not going to wear sandals to hike in the middle of the woods. Now, some people do, and then they end up twisting their ankle because flip-flops aren't made for the woods. But so you shouldn't wear them. There's specific shoes for specific situations. In the same way, there are specific situations where you deal with peace differently. Like sometimes peace is about sitting around a table and talking with someone and coming to a conclusion where both sides understand each other better. That's peace. But that's not going to work if you want to create a peaceful road across the county. In that case, dynamite is the answer to find peace, and you're going to blow up pieces of the road in order to make a smooth, peaceful ride. That too is a way to find peace. Or maybe peace is something much more in the moment where you have two people who are about to really get to it and start, punching each other. Then standing between them is the way to maybe bring about peace. You have to be trained in that, by the way. You don't want to just stand between two people who are about to go at it unless you know what you're doing. And in which case, you are the properly trained person to deal with that situation, to de-escalate that situation. And not everybody who sits at the table and negotiates peace is the right person. So all of this too is about the specific person, the specific person's purpose, the specific method to find peace. Different shoes for different situations, different methods for different solutions to peace. Second, shoes are made to travel. Now, I will have to say that I don't think stilettos are made to travel, but putting that aside for right now, when you put on a pair of shoes, you're putting them on to get to a place. Now, maybe that is across the beach where you're wearing a pair of flip-flops and you don't want the hot sand to burn the bottom of your feet. Maybe they're hiking shoes so you can do a 5-mile hike. I personally am an assistant scoutmaster for a troop in Georgia, in Paulding County, Georgia, and we like to go hiking. So it sounds obvious, but when it's translated to peace, maybe it is not so obvious. Because some people think we just need peace. And in that case, they're talking about it like it's a light switch. Like you turn on peace. Now everything's calm and we're all good. But that is not peace. And that's one of the things that I need to bring up is that if shoes are made for traveling and peace is meant to meet a destination, then just shutting things down doesn't solve the issue. It creates comfort. Comfort is not peace. Comfort can be an outcome of peace, but comfort by itself could be very dangerous. There are a lot of things that we can do that will make us feel comfortable, but it won't bring about peace. It'll bring about a rest. Like going back to me being an ASM and doing lots of hikes. If I was going to go on a 5-mile hike with a bunch of girls, there's going to come a point during that 5-mile hike that the girls are going to want to rest. That rest is a moment of comfort. Peace is the end of the hike. We do not reach peace until we reach the end of what we're walking to. And that's where I think the difference lies. It's okay to occasionally seek comfort, to seek rest, to seek a break from the hard work of getting to the end piece. But at the same time, we shouldn't consider that break, that rest, to be peace. Now we can rest a lot when we get to the end of the hike. See how comfort can also land in peace, but it's not the same thing. Even if we're resting at the end of the hike, it's the end of the hike that made us reach peace, not the rest that we get when we get there. So shoes are made for travel, and peace requires travel to get to it. 3, shoes are made, this one's so simple, like so obvious. Shoes are made for one step at a time. I know. It's crazy, right? It's not like you can take a step and you're 5 steps ahead. You don't go from point A to point B automatically. You put on shoes to get to point A to point B, and you're going to take steps to get there. This reminded me of a story that a minister friend once told. Actually, he told it quite a few times and probably still tells it today, honestly, but I don't see him very much anymore. So I don't know if he still tells it, but he tells it so well, and it has changed my process of dealing with situations so completely that it fits perfectly right here. He used to volunteer at a monastery. It was his thing to do. And he did all these things at the monastery and made friends with the monks that were there. And one of the monks he asked to talk to his youth group. He was a minister friend of mine. He had a youth group. The monk said, "Yes, I will come and talk to your youth group." And my minister friend said, "Can you talk about prayer?" So he said, "Yes, I will talk about prayer." And so he came to the youth group. He gave a speech about the methods of prayer and the different kinds of prayer and asked for questions. And one of the girls raises her hand up and he calls on her and she says, "How long should I pray?" Now, my friend thought this was the most excellent question ever because he knew how long this monk prayed. And he thought that he would say 1 hour, 2 hours. I mean, this monk was in prayer all the time. So, of course, it was going to be something absolutely amazingly long. And the monk said 5 minutes. Now, my friend was completely baffled by this answer. Like, what do you mean 5 minutes? So when it was all said and done, he pulled him aside. He didn't want to talk to him in front of all the youth, like let the guy say what he was going to say and be respectful of that. But afterwards, he went to him and he said, "You said 5 minutes. I know for a fact. I have been in the room with you when you have prayed for over an hour. And that was just one time. You pray all the time." And he looked at my friend and said, "I know. But if I asked them to do what I do, then they would never get started. You have to start small because prayer is a muscle and you work that muscle to create a more connected moment with God." So these people are new at prayer. So why are you asking them to do everything that I do that I've worked so hard to build up to? Blew my mind. Like, it clearly blew his mind because he tells the story all the time. Blows my mind because I get it. Everything is a muscle. Prayer is a muscle. Being peaceful is a muscle. And it's not something that you get right away. It's not something that naturally comes. In fact, I would say that we struggle with it all the time. I struggle with it all the time. I still lose my temper. I'm a grown-up person and I'm going to lose my temper. But I know that I need to take one step at a time. And I am walking towards a destination. So when I'm walking towards peace and I lose my temper, I look back and realize, look how far I've come. Look how far I am now. And realizing that I can stop, I can take my break from my big hike, recollect myself, and continue on. And maybe my steps are only 10 steps that day. Maybe I took 11 miles the day before, but the next day I can only take 10 steps towards peace, and that is good enough. Maybe my steps are small, maybe they're large, but I'm always walking towards that destination. So that leads to finally 4. Shoes are meant to be a protection. They're protecting you from something, like the heat of the beach is why you wear flip-flops. Hiking shoes is so you don't twist ankles. High heels are so you don't make a fashion faux pas. I don't really wear high heels anymore. It's probably why I wasn't a shoe person, is because I thought that girls had to wear high heels all the time. And then I learned, oh no. That's why I'm a all-star person now. They're all flats. I love flats. But that's beside the point. Shoes are meant to be a protection. But here is also a truth, a hard, real truth. Because I'm not going to leave you thinking that it's all sunshine and roses. So many people, so many ministers talk to congregants like everything's going to be okay if you just follow these 4 steps. Or everything's sunshine and roses as long as God's on your side. Because the world will fail. I have to say that because I know what the failure looks like. I've lived it back when I didn't have the power to change the system, when I was just a little kid. This is the part that I didn't tell the little kids because inevitably it's always too much. But I came from a broken home. I saw what it was like to see somebody completely misuse another person to the point where they were stealing from them. And stealing from my sister and myself. I've seen abuse. I've been the subject of abuse. I was in a neglectful home. I was in a place where my parent didn't feed me, and I had to try to figure out how to feed myself. I was in a school that did not give me meals when I didn't have money, and sometimes I didn't have money, and there was a day when I was crying during lunch because I didn't have money to eat, and I didn't know if there was going to be food at home. So in a very real way, I know that peace fails because of human frailty. And that's what I have to say on that. Human frailty. Just like if I were to wear all-stars, they're not going to stop a nail from coming through my shoe. Even though there's protection there, the reality of the fact is bad things happen to good people. If I don't tell you that when bad things happen, you might want to give up. But this is a path. That's part of the reason peace has to be shoes, is because this is a path that you walk. And when you walk, things happen. Like you pick up your son and you walk across a newly paved parking lot and twist your ankle and break it. Real life story here. That didn't keep me from ultimately walking again or building up the strength in my ankle so that I could do real hikes again and do real things. But it did happen. And those things do happen. And we're still trying to get to the point where it doesn't happen. And that's the journey. That's why it's important to keep walking. That's why it's important not to give in to comfort. Because the real comfort comes from reaching the end. So I want to leave you with a quote. Another thing I didn't share with the youth is September 11th, 2001. I was a college student. I knew that I was going to be a minister at this point. I was talking with ministers about which seminary to go to. It was in my brain. I knew where God was calling me. And I was also getting a music degree. And I sang in church. So September 11th, 2001 happened. And I was at school. And we didn't know what was going to happen. We had never experienced anything like that. Airplanes hitting the Twin Towers, thousands of people dead in a moment. It was overwhelming. What was next? We didn't know. We didn't know how many planes had been hijacked. We didn't know what was going to be hit. We were talking about Atlanta being where the CDC was and what would happen if a plane hit that. And it was very scary. And immediately I knew what I had to do. So I called the church I was part of at the time, and I asked if I could sing Let There Be Peace on Earth on Sunday, because that's where I needed to go. Because in the midst of such chaos and such destruction, I lived in chaos and destruction. And the only thing that saved me was knowing that God's peace was there at some point. That if I continued, if I persisted, if I fought, that I could reach that moment where I wasn't in chaos anymore. And since I knew that as a young child, I wanted to share that with the congregation. So that Sunday, I sang Let There Be Peace on Earth, which you can get on YouTube and watch a video of it. There's plenty of copies of it. In the middle of it, I said a quote from Oscar Romero, who was the archbishop at one point, and he wrote the book, The Violence of Love. So in the middle of singing Let There Be Peace on Earth, I shared his quote. And this is where I want to end today. Peace is not the product of terror or fear. Peace is not the silence of cemeteries. Peace is not the result of violent repression. Peace is generous, tranquil contribution of all to the good of all. Peace is dynamism. Peace is generosity. It is right, and it is duty. So let there be peace on earth. And in the chaos, in everything that's happening in the world, as everything seems to be on fire, and I have so little control over so much, I can say, let it begin with me. Go in peace.